go?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming to our session this afternoon, making it up as you go along in flow.
Nice. So, yeah, first of all, a poll. Do we have, who's created a flow before? Nice. We've got some proper flowers here. I'm feeling the flow. There's Will, actually, in the front row here. We work with him, and he says, living the dream. I say to him when he comes in the morning, how's it going, man? And he goes, living the dream, baby. That's the energy I'm getting from the room. And who would say they're an expert flow user? Nice. So there's a few people that might question us on what we say. But so the title's kind of a joke in itself, making it up as you go along in flow. Partly because, like, the process of making the flows that we show you today was kind of making it up as you go along. There was stumbling blocks and people huddled around the same computer on a desk and working out the problems we had. And also partly because the flow makes it up as it goes along as well. The talk started, we've done this talk a couple of times, and the first time we did it, it was really based around how we can drive picklist values from data in the org, which we will show you in this talk. And so the flow's kind of looking at the data in the org and making it up as it goes along with these, and other reactive screen components, just changing values on the screen as we go.
So I'm Claire. I'm a Salesforce admin consultant at Designit, a consultancy in Bristol.
And I'm Angus, Salesforce developer in Bristol at Designit as well. And yeah, we put the thing pushing the boundaries of flow. So often you might see the stuff that we'll show you today, a lot of it isn't production ready. You might think some of it doesn't look great. But really the whole talk is sort of pushing flow as far as we can. When new features come out, we like to play with those features, see how close we can get to sort of a nice user experience. How far can they go? So if we run through, what we're going to show today, we've got the features we're going to show with when they came out above. So you can see how cutting edge we're going to go today, starting with Spring 22 collection filters. And that's a component which can filter a collection of records. Then we've got transform component that was Spring 22, which is where previously you had to loop through records to put them from one object type to another. Now you can do that in one element without a loop. Then record choice sets from collections of records, and that's when you have a collection of records and you can drive values from of a pick list with that collection. And then we're getting to the really new stuff, the reactive screen components. That was one we really liked when it came out. You see values of fields changing as you change other field values on your flow screen, and that looked really smart. The repeater component, which is where you can be asking the user the same question over and over again, and they can be adding submissions. And then flow action buttons, which is another one we really liked. And you'll see how we'll come to those at the end, and you'll see how they can really change the experience of your screen flows.
So the actual use case today came from a client request. The client has about 40+ field service reps, and they sell products which can only be sold in certain configurations. So they basically sell chairs, and chairs are sold in collections. The collections can have different chair types. The chair types can have different backs, arms, legs, cushions, fabrics, you name it, it can have a different configuration. So the main thing about this is the customer has no in-house admin, which means they need to have a seamless way of adding and configuring current products and future products. So they didn't initially go for the solution we're going to show you today, so we still wanted to work with it and we still wanted to take it on the road. So what do we do, Angus?
Yeah, we're not speaking to them anymore now. They've rejected our POC. So we created another company. And the company we've created is Kilts Are Us. This is very fit on. I was thinking before, they come around and take photos. I think I'll whip this off when they come around and take the photos.
I think we look great.
Yeah. And so this company's similar to the one that Claire explained there. They've got their sales agents. Only certain combinations of kilts, the kilt attributes, can be sold together. And once again, they had no in-house admin. So if their product mix changes, they don't want to be going into the setup menu or into the flow to configure their new product mix.
So the order form basically looks like this. Their kilts can be sold with different associations. They can be available for men, women, and kids. The variations, lots of variations, standard clown, military, different materials, obviously different sizes, but there are some caveats. So as you can see, military is only available for men and women, and the synthetic blend is only available for kids. So Angus, based on what we know, what do you think a really good starting point would be?
Well, so we were looking at this, and we've got these sort of different fields that can have different values, and they have different values depending on the values of other fields. So the first thing that comes to mind is, why don't we use dependent pick lists? And
that sounds like a perfect idea. So we looked at the considerations, and there is unlimited depth of dependencies, which that's great. We're not going to exceed that. And the controlling pick lists can have a maximum of 300 active values. And again, with what we want to do, we're not going to exceed that limit. So Angus, shall we have a look?
Let's have a look. Let's do it.
So what we're going to show you now is our opportunity here for G. McHaggis kilt hire. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a product. So here you can see we're adding the kilt day hire, and we're going to hire that for a quantity of 3, which represents days. We're going to hire it for next week. And now what we need to do is go back into that product and configure it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select who's it for. And we're going to select kids. We're going to choose the association, and we're going to select Mackenzie. All looking good. And then we're going to select the variation. Well, I don't know if you can spot, but there's 2 values to select from there. And on the order form that we showed you previously, there's a caveat that military cannot be sold to children. Angus.
What's gone wrong?
We have a problem.
We have a problem. And the problem I was having here, I was trying to configure these pick lists, and the problem is that men and women can have the Mackenzie association, and therefore I need the variation to have these 2 values. But when I go back to kids, I don't want that military to show up here.
So what we need to try and do is set up a new dependency where who's it for can control variation. Shall we have a go?
Let's go. Let's go setup menu.
So we're going to go to the setup menu. We're going to go to the opportunity product object. And within this object, we're going to go to fields and relationships, and we're going to click on the field dependencies. So as you can see, these are the ones we've already set up. And you can see that we've got who's it for is controlling association. So now we're going to try and add another dependency for who's it for. So we're going to click New. We're going to select the controlling field as who's it for. Angus, we've got another problem.
Can't do it.
We can't do it. As you can see, variation is controlled by association. It's a problem. So going back, let's have a look at this problem. So the problem is that pick lists can only be controlled by one field directly above. So who's it for is controlling association. Association controls variation. Variation controls material. Material controls width. When we try to add this new dependency that who's it for controls variation, we get a big no. It's just not possible.
That's not possible.
Angus,
what we're going to do?
We need to go back to the drawing board.
So yeah, we needed to go back to the drawing board, and basically we need to model the dependencies, the more complicated dependencies between these fields in some kind of way in Salesforce. And we started to think, could we model the dependencies in data? And the way we went with, we picked the product table as the data that we'd create the table in. And for every one of these attributes, like who's it for, association, variation, we created one record, which is the unique combination of all of those attributes. And then we thought, so it's a lot of data, it's sort of tens of thousands of records. And we thought we can show these values back to users in a flow. And the general idea of the flow was going to be, we'll get all of the products, which are kilts, we'll do some processing, do some looping, and get the unique who's it for value of unique values in the who's it for column. We'll get the user to select one of the who's it for. We'll filter the products down by the value they chose, and then we'll go again, and then we'll, with the remaining products, we'll look at the association and get a unique list of the associations and show that to the user. And we'll carry on going and carrying on filtering down until we got the one that they're selecting.
Angus, that sounds like a good plan.
Nice.
Shall we have a look at this in practice?
Let's do it, yeah.
So we're going to show you now the same opportunity that we've just shown you. And this time you'll notice a button. So the button is pick your kilt. So here we go. We're going to start again. And the kilt is going to be for kids. And then we're going to choose the Mackenzie Association. And next, we're going to look at the variation. Is there going to be one value?
There is.
There is one value. We've cracked it. Let's go further. So now we're going to choose our material. We're going to choose the waist size.
Waist size. The data, I realise, is a bit random here. It was sort of like trying to think, what's a normal waist size for a kid? It gets worse at length, 10 inches. But, yeah.
It's like a mini kilt.
Yeah.
I mean, so now we've got our kilt nicely configured, and what we now see is very much like an invoice. So at the top, you can see the customer details. The middle section, you can see the kilt that we've just configured. And now we get to some excitement. So we can now see we have got some of the new reactive screen components there on the right. And these react to the slider on the left. So they're going to calculate the total cost. So as you move the slider along, for each day, it's going to increment the cost by £50. You'll also see the discount button disappear and appear. And that is because we've used some visibility here, depending on the number of days we've selected. And as you can see, the grand total takes into account the cost and the discount. Now, another surprise. We've got the repeater component, and we're going to use the repeater component to configure our accessories. So we've chosen some fields that we'd like to get the user to select. So different types of accessory. So we're going to choose a sporran. And quality, let's go for spanking. And then add another accessory. And let's go for, not that one that I cannot pronounce, but maybe flashes. And let's do pure dead brilliant. So you can keep adding and adding and adding your accessories until you have finished. And then we hit next. And then what will appear now is you'll see the accessories will appear as opportunity products. Mm-hmm. So Angus, brilliant.
Oh yeah, it did. I thought, God, hasn't created them, but we got them. Yeah. So we'll start debugging it on Steam. That would be a great talk for everyone. So yeah, but we are actually. I joke that we're going to go and start debugging it on screen. The next step is actually going to see what this flow looks like behind the scenes. So this is the flow behind the scenes, and so we'll talk through some of the components that we've been talking about. We've seen the repeater component now. We've seen the reactive screen components, and now let's look at how we've implemented what we were talking about, how we're showing back these values to the user. So we start in the flow of getting all the kilts. That's a get record. So we're getting all of the products that have family kilt and is active. And then the next component we get to is this transform component that we've been talking about. So this transform component is a legendary component. Rather than having to loop through records to move from one record type to another, you can now just do it in one mapping here. And you can see that here we're mapping the who's it for value of all of the products that we have. And for each of them, we're going to create one record, and we're going to map it to the name of this record. And you'll see that we're mapping it to this object called flow utility. And this is a custom object we've created, which actually we don't show it to the user, and we don't save any data in it. And we just use it for things like this. We just have it for flows, and we could actually use it for other flows, other processing we wanted to do, where we temporarily store that data into a field value. In fact, we didn't even need to create any custom fields on this flow utility. We just use the name. And so we have now a list of flow utilities, all with duplicated names based on the who's it for value of our products. And then we've got this subflow, which we'll come to later, which we pass in the list of these flow utility records with all the duplicated names, and it passes out as a unique list of those flow utility records, which we then use to drive a record choice set, a collection choice set, which drives the picklist values in the picklist you'll see on this screen flow. So that's where those unique names are being shown back to the user, and the user's picking one of them, and we'll later use that in a filter. And you can see some of the nice, there's lots of visibility things going on in this flow. So as people are making selections, we're showing an image based on their selection back to them, so you can start to get that nice experience for the user. So anyway, they've picked a value on that screen, and then for each of the questions, we go down a different branch, and we filter the products by what they selected, and then we do another transform, where we transform back into some duplicated flow utility records with duplicated names, and then we kind of loop by redirecting ourselves back to this subflow, and then back to the same screen, and we go on like that until we've got one record left.
Wow. Angus, I don't know about you, but that was a lot to take in. Do you know what? We've got some magic coming later, which I think we should make some magic now.
Yeah.
So I like to explain this in terms of balls. So everybody can see?
Yeah.
We have a ball full of a bucket full of balls even, and the balls represent product records. And you see here, I've got 3 coloured balls, and these represent the values of the who's it for field. So I've got purple that represents women, green that represents kids, and orange, hopefully, if I got it right, represents men. So I'm going to ask my able assistant to come and transform these records. And there you go. We have them transformed into flow utility records. So now what we're going to do is we need to dedupe these balls and return 3 unique name values. So we're going to dedupe, and then we're going to have our 3 values, which are going to be used in our record choice set, which is going to drive our pick list values back to the user. So I'm going to ask Angus to select a ball. Angus is going to select women. So we're going to use the value women to then filter out our our product records. And as you can see, there are less balls in my bucket. Okay, so the balls in the bucket now only are associated with products relating to women. Okay, so we're going to do the same. I'm going to ask my able assistant, Angus, to come and do some magic, and we're going to transform these products into flow utility records. And then we're going to do some deduping again. And here we are. We're going to go and we're going to get a unique record collection of name values. Angus is going to select one.
Forbes.
He's selected Forbes. And then we're going to use that value to filter down our collection. So we're going to do this over and over again until we've answered all the questions. And then what will be returned is one product record.
Nice. And you see sometimes, for standard clan, sometimes the option is just 1, and then we don't actually filter. We could have just skipped that question, but like Claire says, ultimately we go down to 1. But it wasn't all plain sailing, and limits was a problem we had. because of the amount of records we have, there's like when you sort of got 8 fields and you've got a unique combination of them. I mean, I should actually know that number of how many kilt products there are, but there's tens of thousands, and limits was an issue that we ran into when we came to actually put this. Or when we started looking at the solution later on, because when you're sort of building the solution, you're just doing it with a few products. We'd actually built out the flow before we started seeing these errors. So the first time we built it and actually loaded the data, we got to this screen loading, and if we wait to 30 seconds or 40 seconds, we get a CPU timeout limit, and that's because the way that we were looping through the products was just too inefficient, and we needed to find another way. And that's something we didn't go into when we didn't look into much detail about what this subflow does, the one that's passing in the flow utility records and passing out the unique ones. So I'll show you the first version of it, which was we take in some flow utility records with these duplicated names, and we loop through all of them. And if we've seen the name before, we do nothing. And if we haven't seen the name before, we put it to an output collection, which is going to be our unique list of flow utility records. So this is when we asked for an assistant. We got so many demos in this talk. Oh, I mean, I suppose this is the last one. We got 2 demos in this talk. But have we got a volunteer to come up and pretend to be this flow? No.
Oh, there at the back.
We are, in the back. Here we go.
Thank you so much.
Legend. Living the dream, baby. What's your name?
Anthony.
Anthony, nice.
Anthony, lovely to meet you. So, Anthony, here's our collection of product records. And we're going to go, and I want you to choose one. And if you've seen it before, if we haven't seen it before, we're going to put it in a no bucket. If we have seen it before, we're going to put it in a yes bucket. Okay?
Because you can. I'm starting the timer. Boom.
Ready? 2, 3, 1. Have you seen it before? No. Have you seen yellow before? No. Have you seen blue before? No. Have we seen yellow before? Yes. Yes. No. Yes, you're too fast.
He's going to be good at this.
No.
This isn't what the demo's meant to show. 16 seconds.
Okay.
16 seconds.
16
That's
seconds,
unbelievable.
right.
Claire, you're going to have to be quick in the next bit.
really, really fast for this next one.
So that, yeah, you stay up. And then, so this is like what we'll start to show you is like the kind of bits that we think are like novel patterns in flow, I suppose. You might come into the same limit exceptions, and you might have to come up with a sort of a weird way of doing something as well, because this is pretty weird. So this is the new version of the dedupe flow, and we won't go through all of the nodes, but basically what it does is it loops through our input flow utility records, and in the assignment, it does assign the current item to the output collection, and then it removes all of the instances of the current item from the input collection. So we chuck away all of the colors that are still in the collection, and then we do some other stuff like understand if we've got any records left in the input collection, because actually the loop is from this decision, goes back up to this assignment, and then we go back through the loop. So once we've got no more records in the input collection and a unique output collection, then we go down this no route, end the flow, go back to our other flow. So now we're going to pretend to be this flow.
Okay.
There's no pressure. You have to be quicker than 16 seconds.
Same idea.
Otherwise, I'm never inviting you on stage again.
Same idea. If we haven't seen it, it goes in there. If we have, we've got to be really, really fast at getting that colour lobbed into the audience, okay?
Yeah.
Are we ready?
You're loving it.
Ready? I'll help you.
Let's
ready,
go. Boom.
Steady, go. Have we seen red? We've seen red. We've seen pink. We've seen...
Quicker, easily quicker. Thanks, Anthony. That was great.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Oh, I was worried for a minute there.
Yeah, I was worried. Oh yeah, put that animation of Gary's head spinning around.
So just to go over everything that we've used so far. So we've used collection filters to filter out our product records. We've used a transform component to transform our product records into flow utility records. We've used record choice sets to drive our pick lists. We've used reactive screen components to calculate our total cost based on the number of days of hire. And we've used the repeater component to build our accessories. Angus.
Nice.
There's one thing we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, there's one thing we haven't mentioned, the flow action buttons. And actually, we decided to show the previous flow because, partly because I'm kind of attached to it, and partly because it shows, in the next bit, we can see how the flow action buttons can really change the experience that our users are having in Flow. So, and actually, just before the talk, I was looking at this is a Salesforce blog about a deep dive into these action buttons. And a common use case that they're showing is that you do something like this, where you pick an account and you get it to bring back the contacts and opportunities related to that account. And actually, me and Claire, we come from Bristol Admin Group. Here's our lovely error that we're expecting to see. And we did another talk where we did something similar to this. So we were like pretending that you'd come and reorder your products. So you'd pick an account, and then you'd retrieve all your past opportunities, and then you'd select some of those opportunities, and then you'd come down. If I can scroll, and then you'd get the products from those opportunities, and then maybe you could reorder an opportunity. And that's a common use case you'll see on the blogs. I think that's how Salesforce are sort of seeing how this can be used. And you can see that's a lovely experience as well, a lot better than previously you'd have to click the next button and be loaded a different screen. So that's a nice way of using these action buttons. But we want to see how it might improve the experience in our other flow where we were picking our kilt. So we're going to go and have a look at that, and we have this button, pick your kilt and smile.
So here you can see it's just one screen, one action button, and one pick list component. So as we go through it, we're going to kilt me up, and we're going to choose men.
Yeah.
I'm letting you choose, Angus.
I'll do the choosing.
You select.
Debug.
Debug, maybe not.
What the hell, the data, the quality of the data in this org is a disgrace.
The variation, standard clan. And we're going to go for the material of synthetic blend. And 30-inch waist
30, yeah.
and length. What are you going for? 21 inches.
Nice. So you can see how this experience is much more maybe like a Lightning Web Component experience, and it looks really cool that you're just clicking this one button. You're not having to go to another screen. Things are changing on the screen as you put in different values and as you click the button. So let's see what it looks like back in the Flow Builder. So yeah, previously we were coming from this. We had this this quite noisy flow. We could have moved stuff more into subflows if we wanted, but it's kind of nice to tell the story within this one screen. But if we go to the new flow, it's actually just two screen components, and so it's a lot neater in your flow builder. First of all, and let's see how these screens look. So this is going to be visibility madness when we go onto this. First of all, that image is massive. And second of all, yeah, you can see there's loads of stuff on here with loads of visibility filters. And so let's start with, if we start with the action button, and you'll see how we're using the action button here and how it kind of looks. So like, when you configure an action button, there's this action button thing here on the left, and you drag it onto the screen, and then you pick a subflow that you want to run when that button's clicked. And just like if you select that subflow element on the canvas of a flow builder, you get to select the input values, and those are the variables that have been selected for input in your subflow. So we're putting some input variables into the subflow. And what's a bit different from when you do a subflow, usually when it gives you output values, you get to pick what variables you put those into. Whereas here, it tells you what the output variables are, and you kind of have to reference the button output variables. So it's going to be, when you reference them, it's going to be what the value is after it's been clicked. And that's the nice little thing about how we're using it in this context, because you'll see we're referencing the results are, this is the API name of the button, the kilts are us product selector action, and we have some variables of these output. We have these output variables, and we're referencing the value of the output to show what value they're selecting each time. And we do some visibility filter. So when we see that we do have a 10 minutes, nice. Where we see we do have a value, then we hide one, and when the value's null, we show another. So then we get that experience of the grey ticks going to green ticks. But sort of so on the pick list, we're using a collection choice set, and that's also using the output of this button. So we have the button and the results and the var unique list. But the nice part of this flow is that actually the input values is what we pass back into the button. So we've kind of defined variables within the flow, and on the first click, it kind of initializes those variables, and we pass out a list of products. And then we get the user to make a selection, and we pass it back in. These things like the value selected, and this is a product variable which is holding the value, the selections of the user. So it's a nice little use case of how you can. I think this picked up a nice use case where you can use variables within your subflow to pass back out and then pass them back in on the next click. To take a user through that journey. It's easily breakable. That is the caveat, because if you click too quickly, before it knows before the sort of input has loaded, it passes a null list into the button, and then it goes all weird. So you have to sort of wait for the collection to load and then click. But because of our green ticks here, I know when I can click the next kilt me up button.
So Angus, I think that's just one last thing to do, and I think we need to ask Mr. G. McHaggis if he's happy with his opportunity.
Is he happy?
Yeah. So I think now all that's left to do is to close winning.
Close winning. And guess what we've got set up? Living the dream, baby.
Living the dream.
Oh, I thought that would be a one-click thing. Confetti. Nice.
So awesome. I think we have 5 minutes, maybe, for any questions that you may have.
And there's a mic as well.
Angus.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if there was a validation rule that could be applied, because everything was brilliant, by the way. It's not a criticism at all. I noticed that you selected synthetic material for men, but you originally said that was only for children. So would that be something that could be sort of picked up if you were creating that to make sure that you weren't able to pick that option?
Yeah. You could do it like create a validation rule, and so perhaps you could have that on the opportunity product or something that would stop you saving the record. But actually, if I think that's the data was wrong. So if we were to go to the product table there, and if the order form says, that synthetic shouldn't be available for that Mackenzie and men, actually there will be a line in this table saying that Mackenzie, and actually I wonder if we can get to it. This might be but Mackenzie would be quite far down. Yeah. But the problem is that there's a row on that table that has whatever it was, kids, or what it was, men, something synthetic.
Right.
So we would realise, that's not our product mix. Those two things shouldn't go together, and you could just delete that product. And because the pick list is being driven by this data, that would be it. You wouldn't have to go into the setup menu. You wouldn't have to do a validation rule.
Okay.
You just delete that line, and that would no longer be available. That combination is no longer available.
Okay, cool.
See?
Thank you.
That's all right.
Brilliant, though. Thank you.
Awesome. That might be it.
Okay. Oh, one more question.
Hi. Thank you for the demo. I was wondering how scalable this pattern, this design is with a more complex product, with many more attributes, because we're creating a lot of records.
Yeah.
So how scalable do you think, or how complex do you think we can push that design pattern?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, probably is the question. That is the answer. Do you know? I mean, I think, actually, we could start to look in the org how close we are to the data limits. I don't know. I actually think probably when you're talking, this has taken us to tens of thousands of records. We could do a query and see, we could actually just go into setup menu and data usage. Let's see what's going on. Is it data usage or something like that? Storage. So that's the amount of products we've created is, and actually is products one of those objects which doesn't actually count towards your storage limit or something? Can't see it listed there. So actually, it might be, there are some things like users and stuff where it doesn't count towards your data usage. So perhaps actually, if the problems that you'll run into is running out of storage for your org, which probably can happen when you've got loads and loads of fields with loads of dependencies. Second one is that flow, although it's a lot more efficient, that flow, that technique of removing records from the collection, it would eventually, come unstuck. And then you can do this stuff in Apex. Then that's, I suppose, the talk is about how far you can take flow, how sort of scalable it can be, how resilient it can be. And then you'd be starting to think we need to go to Apex, because with Apex you could do asynchronous processing. You could have some techniques there which would make it much more scalable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it easier to set up the button versus the complex flow?
Well, I suppose the thing is, perhaps when we first went through this flow, we kind of set it up. This was like a painstaking, not painstaking, that's the wrong word. Sort of like, we kind of did this quite neatly anyway, so we'd sort of tried to make it kind of clever. So actually, a kind of similar thing happens with the action button. It's a similar pattern of knowing how far along you are in the process and doing this processing. But probably it's hard to say, because once now we know the action button, we could probably do it again quicker. But it wasn't that pattern wasn't obvious to us, and I suppose that's why I wanted to do a talk about it, because it was like sort of, it did take a bit of thinking and sort of thinking about it. It wasn't the first thing we tried.
Thank you.
And we've got Barry. You're going to pass the mic.
Just as a follow-on, this version of the flow is far more readable as another admin coming in and needing to maintain or update or understand what's going on. How and where would you document your action button version? Because if I'm looking at that screen flow with all the, I wouldn't know where to start and what it's doing. Yeah.
I suppose, I think probably the only place you'd have in Salesforce is the description of the subflow, because that is a subflow. We never went back to have a look at this subflow, but in the action button, which flow are we on? This is so this is our subflow. I wonder, does it let us? An open reference flow. So although this looks pretty minimalist and like you wouldn't know what's going on. We didn't show it, but you would get to this screen, and then that looks a lot. Once you delved in, you'd see something.